net gain or loss in the corridor. For several years, Kent Companies had a defined benefit contribution plan for its employees. During those years, Kent experienced differences between its expected and actual projected benefit obligation. These differences resulted in a cumulative net gain or loss at the beginning of each subsequent year. The following schedule summarizes the amounts related to the preceding information for the years 2019 to 2021. So we have the years and the cumulative net loss or gain, and they're just telling us at the beginning of the year. Kent's actuary and funding agency have also provided the following information about the company's actual projected benefit obligation and fair value of plan assets at the beginning of each year. So projected benefit obligation and plan assets. Kent uses the corridor approach and amortizes any excess gain or loss by the straight line method over the average remaining service life of its active participating employees. Because of a consistent pattern of employee hirings and retirements, the average service life has remained at 20 years for 2019 to 2021. Prepare a schedule to compute the amount of the net gain or loss to include in Kent's pension expense for 2019 through 2021. Enter all amounts as positive numbers. And so we have this pension expense, net gain or loss little schedule here, and the years already filled in, the titles already filled in. So we're starting with the cumulative net loss or gain, and so we're just going to pull that down from the above information. And we're really just going to do the same thing on the projected benefit obligation and the fair value of the plan assets. And so I'm just going to drag that formula all the way down. So we've just copied that information. Now we have to fill in the corridor. And remember that corridor, by definition, is 10% of the greater of the beginning of year projected benefit obligation or beginning of year fair value of plan assets. And so in this case, there's only the 3 years, and it would be really simple just to calculate 10% of whichever one is greater. But for best practices, I think we should use an if function so that you could quickly drag this down 20 years if you needed to and not have to manually check which one is greater. So we'll say equals if, open parentheses, and the if function is if projected benefit obligation is greater than the fair value, then we put a comma and we tell Excel what we want it to do. So if projected benefit is greater than the fair value of the plan assets, then we want it to multiply the projected benefit of the obligation times 0.1, comma, if that's not true, then we want it to multiply the fair value of the plan assets times 0.1. Close parentheses, enter, and we can see that it chose to multiply the projected benefit obligation by the 10% to give us $22,000, and that was correct. So we can drag this down. Oops, I went too far. And we see that it does the same thing where in 2020 it gave us 10% of the projected benefit obligation, which is the greater of the two, and then in year 2021 it gave us 10% of the fair value of the plan assets, which is the greater of the two. So our if function was successful. And like I said, it's easy with 3 years, but if we had a ton of years, that if function would be a saving grace to us. So then we have the excess net gain or loss, and so this is the excess above the corridor. So the net gain or loss minus the corridor gives us 3,000. In 2020, it's unnecessary because the gain or loss doesn't exceed the corridor. And so there's nothing that needs to be amortized in excess of that. So we'll just put a note here. All right, and then same thing here, the gain or loss minus our corridor gives us 4,000. And so now the amortized net gain loss is going to be that excess divided by the 20 years that remain. And that'll be the same for both of these. And that's it for this problem.